Welcome to Historical Reasons. We bring you amazing stories from history. Subscribe and enjoy the video. The hidden journey of the Mona Lisa during the chaos of World War II. The world's most famous painting was secretly moved from place to place. It was hidden in castles and countryside shelters so it would not be destroyed or stolen. When the war finally ended, the Mona Lisa was unboxed again, returning safely to the Louvre, and people saw her smile as a symbol of survival, a mother's search for her lost sonnet, a train station in Austria. A desperate mother held up a photo of her missing son. She showed it to every soldier returning from war, begging for news. Each face carried hope and fear, and her story showed the pain of families who waited years for loved ones who never came home. The crew surrounded by empty shells after a fierce naval battle. The deck of the warship was covered with empty shell casings, still hot from the guns. The sailors stood proudly among the piles of brass, knowing they had poured their strength into the fight. It was a moment of exhaustion mixed with pride, captured forever in history. The San Isidro McDonald's tragedy on a summer day. Horror struck a McDonald's in California when a gunman opened fire. Families hid under tables as bullets tore through the restaurant. Survivors, including children, were led out by police with blank faces of shock. While the country mourned one of its darkest mass shootings, a family faces hatred in their new home in Pennsylvania. A black family moving into their new house was met with angry neighbors. Instead of a welcome, they faced shouts, threats, and harassment. The picture of that moment became a symbol of the struggle against racism, showing how equality was still a distant dream for many. The night the world lost a princess, the car crash in a Paris tunnel ended the life of Princess Diana, leaving the world in grief. The wrecked car became a haunting image, a reminder of how quickly fate can take away someone so beloved. Crowds across the globe lit candles and wept for the people's princess, the champion with mismatched shoes before his Olympic race. Jim Thorpe discovered his shoes were missing. He borrowed two mismatched ones, one too big, one too small. Land stuffed them with socks to make them fit. Against all odds, he ran with all his strength and still won gold, proving true champions cannot be stopped by obstacles. Mountains of fingerprints. By the mid-1940s, the FBI's fingerprint files filled huge rooms with millions of cards. Clerks worked day and night sorting and searching through endless stacks of identity records. It was one of the earliest attempts at building a massive human database. Long before computers existed, New Yorkers say goodbye to Seinfeld. Times Square lit up with giant screens as thousands gathered to watch the last episode of Seinfeld. Strangers laughed together, cheered together, and shared the sadness of saying goodbye to a cultural icon. For one night, a television show united the city like a holiday. The river of floating logs in the early 1900s. The Hudson River was so full of floating logs it looked like a wooden highway. Lumberjacks guided the massive timbers downstream, shouting orders and balancing on rolling logs. It was dangerous work, but vital for building America's growing cities. A protest turns violent in Boston. During a desegregation protest in Boston, a black man was attacked with an American flag by angry demonstrators. The shocking scene showed how even the nation's own symbol of freedom could be twisted into a weapon of hate. The photo became a powerful reminder of the struggles faced during the fight for civil rights. Teens' defiance in Belfast. In the tense streets of Belfast, an Irish teenager stood face to face with armed British soldiers. Instead of fear, the boy shouted in anger, his voice carrying the frustrations of his people. The image captured raw courage in the middle of a divided city. The last prisoners leave Alcatraz, once known as the most secure prison in America. Alcatraz was finally shut down. As the last inmates left the rocky island, the prison's heavy doors closed forever. Its empty cells and silent halls soon turned into a place of mystery and legend. An angry president on the tarmac in Texas, Lyndon B. Johnson, was seen angrily shouting at airplane pilots while John F. Kennedy spoke nearby at a rally. The photo revealed the sharp temper of Johnson even before he would become president, and hinted at the fiery personality that defined his career. A soldier shows a magazine to his enemy during the uneasy pause of the Korean War. A UN soldier held up a Time magazine and showed it to a North Korean soldier across the line. For a brief moment, the war was set aside, and two men from opposite sides shared curiosity about the same picture. Moving the temples of Abu Simbel when rising waters threatened Egypt's ancient treasures, workers performed a miracle. The massive Abu Simbel temples were cut into pieces and moved, stone by stone, to higher ground. It was one of the greatest feats of preservation in history, saving monuments that had stood for thousands of years. The last veteran of Waterloo. In the 1890s, a 103-year-old man posed for a photograph as the last living veteran of the Battle of Waterloo. His wrinkled face carried memories of a war fought long before the age of cameras, connecting the modern world to the soldiers of the past. Women resist during the Armenian genocide in 1915. As the genocide raged, Armenian women armed themselves with rifles and knives. Surrounded by danger, they fought back against soldiers who came to destroy their people. Their bravery turned them into symbols of resistance in one of history's darkest chapters. The emperor, who crowned himself in Central Africa, Jean Bedel Bokassa, staged an extravagant ceremony, crowning himself emperor. He wore robes covered in jewels, sitting on a golden throne while his country struggled with poverty. The event shocked the world as an example of extreme vanity and power. Life in London's Seven Dials, market in the late 1800s. London's Seven Dials was crowded with shops, markets, and working-class families. A clothing store bustled with customers, its windows stacked with fabric and coats. The scene captured everyday life in a city balancing wealth, poverty, and endless activity. A hug that changed history. At a political event, President Bill Clinton warmly hugged a young intern named Monica Lewinsky. No one knew at that moment that this simple hug would later explode into one of the most talked about scandals in American politics. The image became a symbol of secrets that shook the White House. The jet train called Black Beetle in the 1960s. Engineers built a train unlike anything before it, had jet engines on top. Called the Black Beetle, it roared across the tracks in a test run, reaching an incredible 183 miles per hour. The futuristic experiment showed how far people would go in the race for speed. The first giant Ferris wheel at the Chicago World's Fair, crowds stared in awe as a massive Ferris wheel turned slowly above the city, taller than any building around. The ride lifted visitors high into the air, giving them a new way to see the world. It was a wonder of engineering and pure excitement. A future president meets his heroine, 1963. A teenage Bill Clinton waited in line just to shake President Kennedy's hand. The moment lasted only seconds, but it stayed with him forever. Years later, Clinton stood in the same office Kennedy once led, turning a childhood dream into reality. A revolutionary captured in a photograph the camera of René Boury caught Che Guevara in a quiet moment in Cuba. Instead of shouting speeches, Che sat in thought, a cigar in his hand, his eyes full of intensity. The photo revealed the human side of the revolutionary leader, a glimpse behind the legend. A family watches the moon dream on a summer day in 1969. Neil Armstrong's family gathered in front of the TV as a rocket carried him toward the moon. They sat nervously, eyes fixed on the screen, knowing he was part of history. For them, it was not just a mission, it was their father and husband reaching for the stars. Marilyn and the Kennedys in a rare photograph. Marilyn Monroe stood beside President John F. Kennedy and his brother Bobby. Smiles filled the frame, but behind it were rumors, whispers, and stories that would never fully be told. The single picture became one of the most mysterious in American history. Martin Luther King Jr. at the pool table, away from speeches and marches. Dr. King once played a casual game of pool. The photo captured him relaxed, laughing with friends, yet still carrying the weight of a movement on his shoulders. It was a rare glimpse of the man behind the dream. The day San Francisco shook in 1906. An earthquake ripped through San Francisco, toppling buildings and setting fires that burned for days. Over 250,000 people were left homeless, their lives scattered in an instant. The disaster changed the city forever, turning it into a place rebuilt from the ashes. A cowboy's trick on the president at President Eisenhower's inauguration parade. A cowboy lassoed the leader of the free world. The crowd gasped, then laughed, as Eisenhower smiled at the unexpected stunt. It was a moment that showed the fun, unexpected side of American celebrations. Robots on the streets of Cardiff in the 1960s. People walking through Cardiff were surprised to see Daleks from Doctor Who rolling down the streets. Children pointed and laughed, while some adults looked uneasy at the strange machines. It was one of the earliest times TV characters stepped directly into real life. Soldiers sent to stop the riots after the Rodney King verdict in Los Angeles. The city erupted in anger and violence. Streets burned, shops were looted, and chaos spread quickly. The US Army was called in, their trucks and rifles rolling through neighborhoods to restore order. The brave Harlem Hellfighters during World War I. The Harlem Hellfighters fought with courage in Europe, winning respect on the battlefield. But when they returned home, they still faced racism in America. Their story became both a symbol of bravery and a reminder of injustice. Nixon steps down from power in 1974. President Richard Nixon addressed the nation, admitting he could no longer stay in office. With cameras rolling, he announced his resignation, the first US president ever to do so. The Watergate scandal had ended his career and forever changed American politics. A dinner that ended the Cold War on the island of Malta. President George H.W. Bush and Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev shared a meal together. Their talks were warm, not hostile, and many saw it as the true beginning of the end of the Cold War. A dinner table became the setting for global peace. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a like to support our work and share your thoughts in the comments.